Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, Dumbfounding Definitions, Dizzying Distinctions, and Diabolical Doctrines, a series sorting through some of the jargon of philosophy. In this video, we're looking at what is eudaimonia. Now, the word eudaimonia is an ancient Greek word that appears in many philosophical texts. Historically, it has been translated as happiness in philosophical contexts, though it can mean wealth, prosperity, or good fortune in other contexts. However, most modern historians claim that this is an inaccurate translation. Eudaimonia is not thought of as an emotion or an affective state in the way we might think of happiness or joy being. It's more kind of a constant state of being, or something to be achieved that exists throughout your life. Literally, the parts of the word translate into well and spirit. This has given rise to other proposed translations of living well, the good life, or flourishing, or just having your life together. While closer to the real meaning, some translators often still just leave the word in the original Greek to signal to readers that don't have the historical context the difference between ancient and modern notions of happiness. Because, as we'll see, eudaimonia doesn't perfectly map onto what we think of as happiness. So, while many ancient Greek philosophers claimed that eudaimonia constitutes the goal of humanity, they disagreed exactly as to what eudaimonia consists in. Aristotle famously claimed that virtue is necessary but not sufficient for eudaimonia. He argued that to live well is to successfully use one's rational faculties to correctly apply the virtues to moral dilemmas. Simply being virtuous isn't enough. The Stoics, on the other hand, claimed that eudaimonia meant living in accordance with nature. This meant rationally understanding our place in nature and fitting into the good flow of life through the use of our practical reason and understanding of the universe and our place in it. A more concrete description of the Stoics' position was that the Stoics claimed that virtue was necessary and sufficient for the good life, for eudaimonia. That you didn't need to have other things on top. Simply being virtuous was enough. But confusingly, there were other elements of life, such as wealth or health, which were preferable to have. You'd rather have them than not, but weren't necessary or sufficient to be having the good life. They're not necessarily part of having a good life, but you'd rather have them than not have them. But you can be sick and poor and still live a good life. The Epicureans, on the other hand, defined eudaimonia in terms of pleasure. However, this was not necessarily bodily pleasures, as is often confused, as these, according to the Epicureans, often brought about unpleasurable consequences. If you think someone going out for a night drinking wine in the agora might suffer some unpleasurable consequences in the morning. For Epicureans, it was more about the absence of pain and the absence of mental concerns or worries. Check out my videos both on Epicurus and Epicureanism for more on the broad Epicurean philosophy, as well as some of the understanding of why Epicurus advocated for happiness as a form of absence of pain or absence of worry. The Cyrenaics, on the other hand, claimed that eudaimonia was not the ultimate goal, but rather that physical hedonic pleasure was. This position is often confused with the Epicurean position. This furthers the case that a kind of utilitarian view of happiness, or a modern view of happiness, that happiness is something that you experience, or that pleasure is what we're talking about, is not really what the ancient Greeks meant by eudaimonia. And the Cyrenaics actually advocated for pleasure, not eudaimonia, as the ultimate goal. It wasn't about living this full, expansive life. It was really about experiencing good things and good pleasures. Check out my video on Cyrenaicism for more. The missing ancient school was, of course, the Sceptics, but they did not believe anything, or they believed that you couldn't know anything, depending on which school you're looking at, and so had no beliefs about the end goal of life. However, the followers of Pyrrho did make the case that lacking all beliefs would lead to a state of ataraxia, or freedom from concerns. What do you think? What is the goal of life? As much as this eudaimonia is kind of an archaic philosophical term, this is a central question in philosophy and for most people that have kind of existential crises. Is virtue sufficient for happiness or for having a good life? If you're a good person, does that mean that you have the good life or you're flourishing? What about freedom from pain or concern? Is carnal pleasure the only good that really matters? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay skeptical, everybody.